you see something and you go, oh, that would make an absolutely beautiful quilt. So you jot down some ideas, or maybe you take a picture, or maybe you just write some ideas down. Then the next thing you know, you're standing in front of your stash. You've got all the bins open. You're pulling fabric out. You've got the cupboard open. You're pulling fabric out, and it's starting to stack up. And you think, what am I going to make this out of? And then you think, how am I going to make this? And then you get really frustrated and you go clean the kitchen. I know, I've been there. I've done it too. And when something gets really hard, we put it aside. Hi, I'm Roberta from Quilt Crafters Corner, and today I want to talk about how we have those ideas that we absolutely want to get into our quilts. We're just not sure how to do it. So here's what I want you to know. Not one single one of the quilts that I've designed did I start from inventing something. It was something that was started somewhere else, or maybe it was added onto, or it just kind of evolved. I want to share with you where these ideas come from. Now, this quilt behind me is a perfect example of that. A bit more on this later. So, in my last video, I talked what was worth spending money on and not. The things that we already have, you know, the fabric and the rulers. So what's stopping us from getting those ideas out of our head and into our quilts? In the last video, I told a story about my friend and I in the quilt store, and she pointed up at a quilt. She said, oh, that's pretty. And I said, I made that. And she looks at me and I go, I have one just like it at home, because it was made from a kit and it was made from a pattern, and it wasn't unique to me. There's probably hundreds, maybe even thousands of them out there exactly like it. But not having a pattern and not having a kit really isn't a problem, and it's not talent either. Now, one of my most loved quilts was from a 2-minute Google search, and I'll tell you what it was. About 5 years ago, we had a young man working for us that was just fresh out of seminary, and this was during the summer, and every morning before work, he would go fishing. Now, we started at 7 o'clock in the morning, so he got up pretty early to go fishing. And I asked him one time, why fishing? And he goes, it's my prayer time. And I thought that was really a lovely thought. So when he told us he and his wife were expecting, I knew exactly what I was going to make for a quilt for that baby. It was just, oh, this is perfect. And it was going to be unique to them and their story. But I agonized over it, and I spent way too much time thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And it turned out to be a real simple 2-minute Google search for little boy fishing, and I came up with a coloring page that was perfect. And this quilt was made, and I know it's loved and it's cherished because it's unique to them. It's also very unique to me. And it didn't start out with something totally outrageous. It started very small and it started very simple. Now notice, I didn't invent the picture. I didn't even draw the picture. I just basically took it and turned it into a quilt. Real easy, real simple. How do you take the steps if you don't have a coloring book page? Well, maybe it's real simple as taking a picture, or if you can't do that, just a real simple sketch, or maybe even jotting down some ideas. And I know some of you are going to say, I don't draw. Well, drawing is just a skill that you learn to use, just like sewing and quilting is. And then you go, okay, what do I do now? You go play, because that's where all the fun happens. Now, I love experimenting because it's one of my favorite things to do, and it's ways that I can get my quilt ideas done. And this piece here started out, this is the experiment. This is the first piece that I did. Man, I love this piece because of the colors and the wave shapes that it forms. It's a real simple idea and it's real easy to do. Now this, like I said, was an experiment, just trying to see if I could do it and how I could make it work. And then this will always stay an experiment. I probably won't ever do anything with it, and it'll just kind of hang around my room. But it's the idea that keeps fostering new ideas and new ideas. Now here's the second piece, kind of the same idea, but bigger and wider strips. And this turned into a cat mat to put over my cutting table so that I don't get cat hair everywhere. So, and these are just simple ideas to try and experiment, learn a new technique, see if it works for you, see if it's going to work in that quilt that you're thinking about. So there's really no pressure in when you're out there playing and just trying new ideas. Now, the third one is a little outside the box because I've talked before, you've heard me mention how much I love circles, and I have a lot of quilts with a lot of circles in them. And these are just real simple ideas. You remember the butterfly quilt that had the big circle in the middle? These are all great ideas. But then I started going, well, wait a minute, let's do some geometric shapes. And that's how this quilt started. It started with these blocks here and how to get those the blocks in. And at first it was very rows of blocks, and I'm going, no, wait a minute, that's too boring. We need to make it a little bit more exciting than that. So then I threw in these triangles, and I go, okay, now we're going somewhere. And then I threw in the red and the purple as the sashing in the center, going, okay, that kind of breaks it up and gives it a little bit of balance. And then honestly, this was just filler. This was just something to fill in that top space. I started with the darks and I worked all the way over to the lights, across and up. And just a real simple idea, nothing fancy. It's taking these ideas, working with them, and until we can make them ours, until I was happy with it. So that's all this really is taking an idea and working through it until you're happy with it. Now, all three of these things, the coloring pages, the scraps, now this could have been really pretty if I had taken scraps. I did not have to use solids. This could be done easily in scraps and, leftovers and 2.5 inch strips, because that's what most of this all is, and done it with different colors and made it a little bit more textured looking. All three of these, the coloring pages, the strips technique, and the shapes, none of these started from nothing. It all took a starting point and working through it to kind of make it my own. And it just needed to be figured out. And now this one sat on the design wall for a really long time until I was happy with the way it was laid out. Now everybody has a different way of doing things, and it comes down to experimenting and being brave enough to try something new and something different and working with it until we can make it our own. I want to give you permission to go slow, be creative, and trust the process. These are all things that help us develop our own style. Sit down, play, experiment, whatever you want to call it. It then gives you your style. Now, every now and then, an idea has this magical moment overnight and it just becomes a quilt, where sometimes, like this one, it just needs a little bit of time and a little bit of space and for it to actually develop and to get finished. So what idea is sitting in your head that you would love to make into a quilt and you're not really quite sure how? Leave me a comment below. I would love to know, and I'd love to help you get through that. Now, if you don't have a starting point that gets you going on an idea that you'd like to get into one of your quilts, down below in the description, I have a link to my quilt design guide. And in that guide, it will help you get the ideas out of your head and into your quilts. Just click the link, you will join my email list, and then we can continue the conversation on helping you get those ideas out of your head. Next time, I want to talk about something that happens to a lot of us. And that's where we're making the same quilt over and over and over again. Maybe with different fabric, but it's the same quilt. There's a reason for that, and it's not because you're running out of ideas. I'll get more into that into the next video. If you missed my last video on what's worth spending money on and what's not, I'll leave a link up here and down in the description for you to check. It's worth checking out. But in the meantime, play, experiment, try new ideas, try new techniques, do things a little differently, and just see what you can develop your own personal style and your own personal quilts. Until then, happy quilting.